A new exciting Yu-Gi-Oh tournament has been announced. YCS Vegas, a 3v3. A new exciting Yu-Gi-Oh tournament has been announced. YCS Raleigh, woo! A new exciting Yu-Gi-Oh tournament has been announced. YCS Indianapolis, yeah! A new exciting Yu-Gi-Oh tournament has been announced. Worlds! I wonder if we're forgetting something. So Europe is not getting any YCSs, is it? I've been complaining about this for quite a few months on Twitter now, to probably the annoyance of some of my followers. And while it was always more of a hunch, because we kept on waiting, and there was no announcement, and there was a Dutch Open, and a French Open, and a German Open. Not a Belgian Open, of course. What the fuck is Belgium? Soon we'll probably have a Monaco Open. There was just no YCS announcement. Where is this YCS announcement, really? And then they suddenly announced Euros. It's like, huh? But Euros is only in the summer. Normally, they announce events chronologically. So does that mean we're not getting any events until summer? And then they announce Nationals. Wow, Nationals, hooray! But where's those YCSs though? It is slowly starting to dawn on even some of the higher profile players out there that Europe is really not getting YCSs. Probably until September. And God, I hope at least by fall we're getting some. If this is the end of YCSs, I'm like, oh, let's not talk about that just yet. Left and right, pro players are actually picking up other card games or just other games in general. And there's very, very little outrage about this online, which is actually blowing my mind. You know how a while ago there were all these business articles that would talk about workers who are no longer that interested in working for their company, quiet quitting? Well, people are kind of quiet quitting Yu-Gi-Oh! It's not like they sold all their cards, it's not like they stopped following altogether, but what used to be grinding on Dueling Book every day, playtesting with their friends, really getting ready for those major premiere events, has turned into maybe going to an OTS? Maybe. I literally sold my entire Fire Core and have not bought into any set since Age of Overlord. I've also signed up to the Pokemon EU I see. Now again, I'm no pro player by any means, but there are much better players who are like, oh, One Piece Worlds? That card has a bid of $700,000 and we don't have events? Interesting. Now that could go into a whole discussion about pricing and so forth, but that's not really the point of this video. Don't get me wrong, I am not quitting Yu-Gi-Oh! I love Yu-Gi-Oh! I will be tryharding for Euros, but holding a $1,500 deck to compete at locals? I'm good. I'm seriously good. And there are so many people making this same decision right now. It is absolutely insane. Competitive events are the lifeblood of Yu-Gi-Oh! You may think that this card game will just thrive on the franchise alone and a casual buying a Slifer deck at the local store, but this couldn't be further from the truth. So let's talk about some reasons. First of all, casual Yu-Gi-Oh! Sucks balls. Now this could probably be an entire video on its own, but in general, I think if you go to a locals right now with a super casual deck and you're just gonna have a little bit of fun, that really doesn't exist. Your Toon deck will have to go up against some Snake Eyes player. And getting 20 people to all bring their jank decks just because you don't want to spend that kind of money is just not a thing. You also do not have the Friday Night Magic thing where we're all bringing weak commander decks to have a little fun for a couple hours. That just doesn't exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's OTS, regional, or bust, mostly. Sure, some people might settle down with some GOAT once in a while, but that is really a minority. Time Wizard as a whole is really not that supported just yet. So in general, if it comes to paper, casual Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not a major thing and will not as an ecosystem by itself support this card game. But again, that could be a whole video on its own. Second, Yu-Gi-Oh! Can absolutely not afford to sleep at the wheel while these other card games are currently going through their own hype cycles. We have Lorcana. I'm aware it is Disney. There is not that much overlap between like a typical anime fan and a typical Disney fan, but they exist, and every single time a local store needs to consider, do I care about this game or this game this evening? They are still going to be making some kind of choice unless their store is so massive that they can host like 40 people for one and 40 people for the other. The reality is though that that's not happening. So again, all these card games are somewhat gonna have some cross section. Now Lorcana doesn't really have major events just yet. You know, it's starting. But then you have Flesh and Blood, who has like, what, $1.5 million in prizing right now for their huge ass circuit. So that is also trying to grab some card game players wherever they can. And then of course, finally, the big daddy of new upcoming card games, One Piece. One Piece is doing incredibly well. So many people from all card games, by the way, are jumping ship because that's just what happens. People go like, oh, this format sucks, I'm gonna try out a new game. Oh, this thing sucks, I'm gonna try out a new game. And after a while, they might go, oh, this new game sucks, I'm gonna go back. But so whenever your game, your main game, is fucking up in some way, more of those people are gonna jump ship. And so right now, where we are in an era where there's more of these games than ever, and they are doing better than ever, your company behind your game, whether it's Pokemon, Magic, or Yu-Gi-Oh, cannot afford to just be like, events? Whatever, you know. Do people really care about events? Do they care? I don't know. I think the local McDonald's regional is gonna be good enough. And so when you're a really competitive player, you're like, damn, I just like to compete, I like to be ambitious, I like to really put my time into something, grind and be the best at something where other people are also trying to be the best. When your company then goes, events, do you really care about competing though? We got Edison at home, people leave. Number 3, Yu-Gi-Oh! Regionals are seen as a joke. People generally do not really care about these tops. This is also why people differentiate between a regional top and a premier top. The fact that this differentiation even exists should show you it's not that insanely hard, because you have what, like 8 rounds of Swiss? A YCS is like 12. That is a big difference. And regionals are generally also limited to the region, meaning you don't have the very best of a whole continent, you have the very best of like 3 countries or so. And then for the USA, you know, it would be similar, it would be the best of that state, maybe 2 states, 3 states, you know, a little cluster. But New York people are generally not gonna fly to LA for regionals. So regionals are really, they are easier to top, and most people know this, so the value of that regional top is just nowhere near the value of a YCS top. Now, why does that matter? Because the main reason you want to top a event is prestige. Now, you might tell me otherwise. You might be like, oh, no, I don't care about the prestige. I just care about having fun. I just care about doing well at the game I love. That is just bullshit, and you know it. Because let's be real, we're not topping for the prizing. That is not a thing. No one is going to an event thinking, God, if I now spend 3 weeks learning this format and grinding my face off, I could get top 8 at this regional, get the playmat, and sell the playmat for $50. Yeah. Or you could take 1 shift at Starbucks and make the same $50. So pricing, throw it away. There is no pricing to talk about. Meaning the only thing that's left is prestige. You top for clout. It might be clout to friends, clout to your local competitors, clout on the internet, or just clout to yourself. You're like, wow, I'm a good player, I'm consistently topping. But in general, it's prestige. It's the fact that people look up to this achievement that makes you give a fuck. If every single person tomorrow died and you were the last person on Earth and there was a regional with a bunch of AIs that you had to beat in order to top, but no one would ever acknowledge that top because obviously you're the last person on Earth, you would not play that regional. You care about clout when you care about topping. And that is fine. We all care about it. So pricing, fuck no. Love for the game, sure, but prestige. It's about prestige. You could laugh, oh, but it's prestige in a card game. Who cares about prestige in a card game? You're playing it, you're competing it, everyone cares about the prestige. So, why this long rant? Because when everyone thinks a regional top, that's free, who cares, it's not a premier top. The prestige is gone. And so if you're a very competitive player and you're playing for prestige, but there is none, then you're not competing and you're not caring. Now there's a little prestige in the regionals, and when there's no other alternative, sure, but it's really not the same and everyone knows. Now you might say, hey, but there's these opens. You know, a German Open is still pretty cool. Sure, but it's still just a glorified regional and everyone knows this. And when the pros are listing their tops on Twitter, they are not saying, oh, I have 5 YCS tops plus the Open. That's just not really a thing. So regionals are not a replacement. Opens are not a replacement, and God, nationals, no. Nationals are not a replacement either. I don't know who has gaslit the world into saying European nationals are a premier top, but they aren't. And the reason that they aren't is because the whole allure of a national in Europe has been diluted because every country gets them. There is no difference between the 15-player Monaco national and the 1500-player German national. Obviously, in practice there is. The 1500 national is really hard to top, but the whole allure of national has been destroyed. The winner of that Monaco national, and by the way, I don't think Monaco has nationals, is still getting that prize card. So the value is just gone. It has been diluted. The brand of national is weak now. Even though, again, it is very hard. You know, if you're winning German nationals, you have basically won a YCS in terms of Swiss rounds. But it ain't the same. It ain't the same in anyone's eyes. And when you're competing for prestige, because you're not competing for prizing, that is bad. Now, the worst part here is that they kept this quiet. There was no announcement of, hey, you guys, we have some issue. We don't even know the issue, by the way. More on that later. There's some reason we're not going to have YCSs this season. We're sorry, but we are going to give you this. There's some opens and we're going to have giant cards and blah, blah, whatever, There was no such announcement. In the most expensive format in modern Yu-Gi-Oh history, the best deck, and by the way, only deck, if we're being real, is $1,500. If you want to have your Wanted and your Diabellstar and your Bonfire and your Promethean Princess and your Poplar and your blah, 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 if you want all of this, $1,500. And they said nothing. So people have been buying these cards. Last year you bought into Wanted, so okay, you could play your Rescue Ace deck. Sure, you bought those already. But since January, you have been buying these other cards, assuming, hey, I'm gonna need these for the YCS. You've been playtesting, I'm gonna need these for the YCS, oh, damn, I really want to top some events, and just nothing. You've been spending so much money because you were assuming you were gonna get to compete. Not at the McDonald's regional. You were gonna get to compete at a YCS because you believed that's what you were testing for. Nothing. Nice deck. Hope you won locals. You got 2 OTS packs. Hope you pulled that ulti. If you have a really hardworking judge at that locals, they might even stream it. You might have gotten a streamed game. You beat the Shark deck with your Snake Eye deck. And everyone was watching. You had 12 peak viewers on Twitch. Wow. It's a good thing you spent $1,500 for this deck because you wouldn't have gotten that experience otherwise. Now, why is this happening? Honestly, no idea. I've seen some people say, oh, there's this rumor about this or a rumor about that. I've heard that money is tight. I've heard that venues are very expensive. I've heard this, I've heard that. I don't know. But the most important part? I don't care. Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how expensive these events are. Now, I know you're gonna call me crazy, but listen here. These events are not supposed to be profitable. They never are. It is actually impossible for them to be profitable. And you know why? These venues are expensive. Getting all that staff is expensive. Getting all of that product and all of these fucking trucks with all of this equipment, it is expensive. Of course it is expensive. But you know what is also expensive? Yu-Gi-Oh cards. These events are marketing expenses. They are meant to cost a bunch, and then a bunch of players at home see, wow, this YCS looks so fun. I want to go to a YCS. I saw Joshua Schmidt on stream and it was so cool and I like him so much and he's so good at the game. I want to be just like him. I'm gonna tune into his stream. Wow, he's playing Runic Bishbalkin. I love Runic Bishbalkin now. I'm gonna go online, buy the Runic Bishbalkin deck. I spent this money on this vendor. This vendor uses this money to buy a new set at the distributor Blackfire. Blackfire sees, wow, sales are up and buys even more product from Konami, making Konami more money in the future. That is what these events are for. So in the short term, our entry fee, yeah, it kind of helps cover the costs, but not fully, but they shouldn't. They never do. That is not the goal. Do you really think that a Pokemon Regional or a Pokemon EUIC is profitable after they paid out like 100,000 in prize money? Do you think the Flesh and Blood major events are profitable after paying out $1.5 million? Of course not. The goal isn't to be profitable. The goal is for these events to be so prestigious and so wow that so many people across the globe see that and think, wow, I want to play that card game. and buy the fucking cards. Become part of the ecosystem. So if events are too expensive, too fucking bad. It literally doesn't matter. These events should happen regardless of their expense, unless of course they were suddenly billions. If every venue costed $1 trillion, sure, cancel the event. But in general, the cost should not even be that important. And you're not even giving prize money, so let's be real, it can't be that expensive. Because these are a marketing expense. These are loss leaders, and that is fine. Without events, this game dies. You may think that casual collectors will keep on collecting, but in the end, a bunch of people are enfranchised in the game, not necessarily even traveling to the event, but because they saw online some pro doing well in an event or some creator going to this event, it makes them feel like they're part of something bigger, a big part of a big community. They go to locals and so forth, they might even go to regionals, and they know, wow, this game is gonna stay alive because look, this entire community, this entire thing, wow, I'm part of something bigger. And so they buy cards with the trust that other people will keep on wanting these cards. They buy cards with the trust that there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of players just like them also valuing these cards. Do you really think people would give a fuck about Jesse Cotton or Joshua Schmidt or Pack if their major event tops were just McDonald's regionals and their trophy was actually a McFlurry? Do you think anyone would give a fuck that you're the best at this if being the best is only crowned with a Happy Meal on your way out? Of course not. The major event and the whole thing surrounding that is what creates the prestige and the allure, and you at home, even if you're not there, are already placing value in these cards just from all of that happening. And that is what gets you hooked, that is what gets you connected, that is what gets you buying cards even if you're not physically there. Premier events are the lifeblood of the competitive sphere, and the semi-competitive players looking up to said competitive sphere are what's keeping the game alive. Now, some are saying this is not necessarily Konami Europe's fault, and that is true. It very well could be that it's higher ups not giving them the required budget to be able to hold YCSs. We don't know, we're just assuming. They could have been dealt a really shitty hand and are playing with the cards they're dealt. And at that point I say, sure, I agree. Let's not blame Konami Europe. Let's blame the dealer.